Shalom Uvracha, Rabbi. I hope you and your families are feeling well. We're living during difficult times, during trying times, times which perhaps for many of us are testing us in ways which we've never been tested before. And of course, Klal Yisrael, we respond by trying to find meaning, trying to find purpose in the challenge. We ask ourselves, as so many of us have been asking, what's the message the Rebbeinu Shalom is sending? What's the Rebbeinu Shalom telling us? How are we to respond? What changes are we supposed to make? How are we to be sure that Be'ezras Hashem we emerge from this both as individuals and as a community, stronger, with a deeper and more profound relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom? I think many of us were a bit surprised, perhaps caught off guard, with the sense of vulnerability, the lack of security, the uncertainty which was thrust upon us. And I think this feeling, this emotion of vulnerability, which is so uncomfortable. In fact, we know that a human being craves control. We know that a human being desires control above all else. In fact, the Maharal tells us that the chet of Avodah Zarah, the sin of Avodah Zarah, that temptation which Chazal describe, yet none of us could really relate to, that was rooted in a human being's need for control. A human being had to control his own destiny. That desire is what led so many members of Klal Yisrael, Rachmana litzlan, to Avodah Zarah. There was a certain level of control which was promised. You do this Avodah Zarah, and you're promised posterity, says the Maharal. Human being needs control. And when all those things which give us a false sense of security, whether it be our means of making a parnasa, or whether it be our good health, when all those things are stripped away from us, it throws us into a frenzy, because we feel that discomfort, that lack of control. We feel vulnerable. But I think this moment in particular, a moment where we feel perhaps extremely vulnerable. We don't know much. We're uncertain as to where this virus is going to take us. We're uncertain as to our parnasa, perhaps uncertain about our own health, perhaps uncertain about the markets. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Perhaps this is a moment for a specific journey, a specific aspect of Avodas Hashem, which perhaps gets neglected in other times of our life. You see, there's an entire area of Avodas Hashem which often could go overlooked. And perhaps one could argue that it's the most primary and fundamental aspect of our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Of course, a person knows that he has to be a maimin, he has to believe. And he knows that that emunah has to reflect itself in bitachon, in faith, practical faith and dependence on the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Vilna Gaon tells us, in fact, that this is the most central aspect of our relationship with the Borei Olam. Vilna Gaon says, Iker nisi nasai, on Mishlei he writes, Iker nisi nasai, shel haTorah le'ama Yisrael, kedei sheyasimu bitchoinoi b'Hashem. The main reason, the main purpose of Kabbalas HaTorah, of the 613 mitzvahs, their tachlis, their function, is to create a nation, asher sam bitchoinoi b'Hashem, that put their faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom. In fact, many argue that this is the explicit psukim. The psukim tell us, in the parsha that deals with the man, the psukim tell us that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave many halachas that are relevant to the man. How much you're allowed to take. You can't leave anything over. You can't collect on Shabbos, double on Friday. And the Torah says that these halachas was a litmus test for the Rebbeinu Shalom. It was going to be a gauge for whether Klal Yisrael would be able to keep the entirety of the Torah. Hayelech b'soyrasi imloi. Klal Yisrael, I'm giving you a few halachas of man to see whether you'll be able to follow the Torah, all 613. And at first glance, it's a bit puzzling. The halachas of a man, what does it have to do with all the halachas of the Torah? What does that have to do with Hishluach HaKayin? What does it have to do with Kibbut Avayim? What does it have to do with Sukkot, Shavuot? What does it have to do with any of the mitzvahs? Why is the man a litmus test hayelech b'soyrasi imloi? The Farshim explain because the man was all about bitachon. Person would go to sleep at night, his refrigerator was empty. He had faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom that tomorrow there would be more money. The entirety of the Torah, says the Vilna Gaon, is to achieve that goal. Sheyasimu bitchonoi b'Hashem, that we become balei bitachon. How scary it is that a person could live his entire life, shomer Torah mitzvahs, makbid on all the halachas and shmiras Shabbos, davens with a minyan 3 times a day, kaveya itim la Torah, but never takes pause to think about his bitachon, his level of faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because you see, bitachon is not an intellectual exercise. We all have emunah, we believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom. And we all believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom's sovereignty over the world and that he controls everything that goes on. So intellectually we believe he's in control. But the distance between the mind and the heart when it comes to bitachon is quite large, quite vast. And therefore this idea, this knowledge, this yediyah never penetrates our heart unless we work on it. So a person could say all the right things and he could believe all the right things, but at the end of the day, he does his ishtadlus as is expected of him. Person goes to work as is expected of him. We go to doctors as is expected of us. So how are we ever supposed to work on our bitachon? How does a person know if he's merely paying lip service, yes, I believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom, or he believes in koichi va'itzim yodi, but says he has bitachon b'Hashem? Says the Alter of Neuburger, there are certain times, drastic times, where the Rebbeinu Shalom makes it clear who has bitachon and who doesn't. There are certain times where our bitachon is tested. Explains the Alter of Neuburger in his Sefer Madregas Ha'odam. Gam yerach chas v'chalila eis charem ba'olam. Sometimes there is tremendous devastation in the world, but a Baal bitachon remains above it. Lo yigazel liboy klal. It doesn't enter his heart. Because his faith, his security is not coming from anything external. It's not coming from his bank account, not coming from his parnas, from his job, not coming from his good health. His faith is coming from the Bari Olam, from the creator of the world. And therefore, even at times of grave, grave concern, even at times of tremendous uncertainty, the Baal Bitachon is able to remain above it. He's able to remain calm and collected. But this is quite a job, quite a difficult expectation for a person to be able to live his life, not only with the knowledge that the Rebbeinu Shalom is in control, but with the emotional dependence, the reliance on the Rebbeinu Shalom. So you say, I know that the Rebbeinu Shalom is in control, I believe it, right? But how do I get there? How do I get to that point where emotionally I live my life like that? It's of course very difficult. At certain times in our life, the Rebbeinu Shalom takes those things away from us. Those things which gave us our sense of security, to remind us that our faith shouldn't be in those things, but our faith must be in Him. And if our faith is truly in Him, then that will provide us with the greatest comfort that we can't gain from any other source of security. So how do we work on our bitachon? At a point in time where everything is uncertain, a point in time where everything is thrown into question. We don't know what will be in a week, in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. Certainly a time to work on our bitachon. But how does one go about doing it? It's not about reading more. We know the Rebbeinu Shalom is in control. How do we allow that to penetrate our hearts? So I think this is answered by Chazal. Chazal have gave us an exercise in bitachon. The exercise in bitachon is called tefillah. The main purpose of tefillah, according to so many mefarshim, is to help us flex and exercise our muscles of bitachon. You see, many mefarshim are bothered by why we bother davening in the first place. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't need us to notify him of exactly what we need. We turn to the Rebbeinu Shalom and we say we need refuah. He knows we need refuah. We say Baruch Aleinu, we need parnasa. He knows we need parnasa. So what exactly are we doing? If we deserve it, He'll give it to us. If we don't deserve it, He won't give it to us. Many of the mefarshim explain that you're misunderstanding. we need to be boteach on the Rebbeinu Shalom. If we depend on the Rebbeinu Shalom, we're truly relying on the Rebbeinu Shalom, He will provide it. But how do we get to such a state? How do we get to a level where we are truly depending on Him? And we're not depending on kochi va'otzim yadi. We're not depending on all those external forces which so often provide us with this false sense of security. How does one truly become a boteach b'Hashem so that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, you're relying on me, ha-boteach b'Hashem, you're relying on me, chesed yisayvivenu, I'm going to provide. How do I become that boteach? Chazal tell us 3 times a day, we remind ourselves who's in control. Barech Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu es hashana hazois. I'm reminding myself the Rebbeinu Shalom provides me with parnasa, and I rely on the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rifeinu Hashem v'nei rafei Yoshienu v'ni v'shei Akisu Yoseinu Ata. I'm reminding myself and proclaiming for everyone to hear who provides real refuah, the Rebbeinu Shalom. And with that strengthened sense of bitachon which tefillah provides, we thereby become worthy of the Rebbeinu Shalom's blessings, because we become balei bitachon. Tefillah is meant to be an exercise in bitachon. Tefillah is there to help us enhance our bitachon. So we go and remind ourselves throughout the day what exactly it is, who exactly is in charge. And if tefillah is done properly, we change as individuals. We change as human beings. We're people that are truly boteach b'Hashem. We truly put our faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom. We don't just say we believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom. We don't just say we have faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom, but we truly believe in Him. And that is the zechus for meriting all those things that we need. In fact, the Ramban says in Parshas Mishpatim, we just learned a few weeks ago, the Ramban says, if you look throughout the entirety of Torah, you won't find much about tefillah. But there's one tefillah that the Torah describes, and the Torah guarantees one will be answered. A guarantee, a havtacha from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Who could expect, who could want anything greater than a havtacha from the Rebbeinu Shalom that he'll be mekabel, he'll receive his tefillahs? And the Torah says, Im aneh sa'ana iso, if you afflict an almana, a widow, or a yasom, an orphan, ki im tzoik yitzak elai, he's going to scream out to me. Shamoya eshma tzakaso, the Rebbeinu Shalom promises, I will be listening to his tefillah. He will cry out to me that you're causing him pain, and I will listen, I will heed his tefillah, says the Ramban. This is the single time in Kol HaTorah Kula the Rebbeinu Shalom gives a havtacha, a promise that he will listen to tefillah. The Ramban explains, because we're talking about a yasom and an almana. Many of us approach the Rebbeinu Shalom. We ask the Rebbeinu Shalom to help us, but in the back of our minds, we know we have someone else to be soymech on. We know that we have a little bit of a cushion in our bank accounts, perhaps. We know that we, generally speaking, have good health. We know that we have connections, we have friends, we have other people to help us. And therefore, when we turn to the Rebbeinu Shalom, we're not putting our faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom. We're asking the Rebbeinu Shalom for help, but if he doesn't come through, we have all these other means. Rebbeinu Shalom says, you don't need me? Okay, let's see if they could come through. But when a yasam and almana approach the Rebbeinu Shalom and say, Im tzoik yitzak alai, they say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, I have no one else to turn to. I don't have a husband, I don't have a father, I don't have anyone else to call to call out to. They're putting their entire faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom. All their eggs in that basket. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, a person who puts all his faith in me, that's the person I respond to. That's the person who deserves my brachas. Tefillah is an exercise in bitachon. Bitachon is the answer to all our prayers. All the desires that we need, all the things we're asking for. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, have faith in me and me alone, and I will provide them for you. Now, so often our tefillahs are so hurried, so rushed, that the purpose of the tefillah went unnoticed. And we never realize that function. We never become greater balei bitachon through our tefillahs. Unfortunately, we're in circumstances now where our tefillahs could be a little bit slower. perhaps with a little bit more thought. Chazon Ish once told person told a Chazon Ish that he has tremendous desire to daven for a long, long time with tremendous kavanah, but he's not able to do it b'tzibur. He's not able to do it with all the distractions. The Chazon Ish told him, once a week I'll allow you to daven b'yechidus. Because davening b'yechidus, of course, we don't promote such a thing. But davening b'yechidus allows a person at times to be able to daven with more forethought, with more concentration. So we've been forced into a situation where many of us are davening b'yechidus. Now's an opportunity to work on our tefillah, to be sure that those tefillahs are tefillahs which change us. As Rav Hirsch writes, they're mispalel, reflexive. They change us as individuals. They turn us into greater balei bitachon, that our faith is coming strictly from the Rabbi Shalom. As the events of this past weeks and month has taught us clearly, there's so little that we know. We're in control of so little. Now's the time to work on our bitachon. Now's the time to work on tefillah to make us greater balei bitachon. Now is when we so acutely realize how dependent, in fact, we are on the Rabbi Shalom. And is therefore, because of this, I think that we as a chabura, as a kehillah, should take this opportunity to strengthen our bitachon and strengthen our tefillah. And I ask each of you to join me, whether it be live, Be'ezus Hashem, I'll send out a link via Zoom at 7:50 in the morning to share some words on bitachon and tefillah, or throughout the day, if you want to listen, it will be recorded. But let's together take this opportunity to turn to the Rabbi Shalom and remind ourselves that all the false sense of security that perhaps we have gained comfort from, all that security which has now been thrown into question, we realize that truly there's only one person, there's only one being, the Rabbi Shalom himself, that we really have faith in, that we could really depend on. That should be our goal, to increase our bitachon through enhancing our tefillas. And Be'ezus Hashem, we will emerge from this stronger people, stronger Oivdei Hashem, with a deeper and more profound connection to the Rabbi Shalom, with enhanced tefillah, with enhanced level of bitachon. We will feel the presence of the Rabbi Shalom. He will allow us not only back into our mikdash ma'at, but Be'ezus Hashem to the mikdash hagadol b'mheira v'yameinu, amen v'yamein.